describe what it is. You know, you start here in Mercer County, and of course I have the northern half, but then I have Van Wert, Paulding, Defiance, and Williams, Boat, Henry, Putnam, Wood County, I'm from Bowling Green, and then you go up, I have part of Lucas County, Sandusky County, Seneca County, the eastern half of Wyandotte County, Huron County, Crawford County, and I have the northern half of Ashland County. So we're about 140 miles north, or I should say east to west. And I don't care where I was, it was really the same topic everybody was concerned about. Also, my district is interesting. Where we live, it's the largest agricultural district in the state of Ohio, and it's also the largest manufacturing district in the state of Ohio. Last year at this time, we had the 9th largest manufacturing district in Congress. This year, because of the job losses and what's happening in manufacturing, we're now 15th. So between those two things, folks have got a lot of concern. What I'd like to do is just kind of give you a little bit of where we've gone this year, but also really let it open up. I want to hear from you. You know, this year it started off that there was about a $1.2 trillion stimulus package that passed. And a lot of people were concerned about that for good reason. First, you know, they said it was going to cost $787 billion, but by the time we pay the interest back to the Chinese, and we owe foreign governments now $3 trillion. Of that $3 trillion, we owe the Chinese $2 trillion in what they owe of a lot of our bonds and notes, but they also own like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, so we're heavily in debt to the Chinese. We also have at this time, about $11.5 trillion national debt. We're going to have about a $1.6 trillion deficit by the end of this year that's going to get back on. So when they came up with the stimulus idea, they said it was going to cost $787 billion. The interest in all will be about $1.2 trillion. Unfortunately, the bill came to the floor without anybody ever seeing the bill and never had a committee hearing. So at 10 o'clock at night, they had what they call Rules Committee. Then they brought it right to the floor the very next day and they passed it out. People said, well, it's in. Well, people didn't know what was in it. And, you know, folks are getting concerned because, you know, at that time, they were supposed to keep unemployment less than 8%. And, you know, here in Ohio, we're at 11.2%. I mean, they've only got about 10% of the money out right now, and it's going to take a long time if that money ever gets out. The other thing that people started being concerned about was what they call the cap and tax or cap and trade. What that bill does, it takes your emissions from like your coal generation or any of your power plants or any plants that emit any CO2, and it puts a cap on it. And over time, what's going to happen is it's going to get fewer and fewer amounts of credits will be given out. So like here in Ohio, we get 87% of our energy comes from coal. Indiana next door gets 94% of their energy from coal. So Ohio and Indiana are the two hardest hit states in the country when it comes to this whole bill. And it almost looks like war's been declared because I asked what they call the Heritage Foundation if they could run numbers on the districts. And there's the 435 congressional districts. The two worst districts in this country that are hit by cap and tax are in Indiana, and my district is number 3rd, and the district right below me is number 4 in the nation. Of the top 20 districts in the country that are hardest hit, 8 are in Indiana, 8 are in Ohio. So it's estimated that the bill is going to cost anywhere between 1.5 to 3 million jobs. Pretty much it's going to add on because you know it's more expensive for gasoline, and when you turn your light switch on in the morning, it'll cost you about $1,500 more a year in add-ons, and it could go up to over $3,000. So when you look at what it can do to the ag community and manufacturing here in Ohio, especially in our district, I'm really concerned. Unfortunately, that bill passed because what they did the night before the bill came to the floor, they tacked on a 300-page amendment. Nobody had even seen that at 3 o'clock in the morning. That bill passed 219 to 212. So right now it's over in the Senate, and hopefully they look at it really hard because it's a jobs killer. China and India have already said they're not going to abide by the bill or any of this kind of stuff at all. So if we would do what this bill says, within 8 years, the CO2 levels in the world would be exactly where they are, because the Chinese and the Indians are going to make it up. And the Chinese now are the #1 manufacturers in the world. Then we had, of course, what they call the cash for clunkers. And this got a lot of people concerned because cash for clunkers, it started off as $1 billion. Morning.
Hi, fire away.
Thank you. And they said, well, we needed more money. And by the time this program got done, they first started off with a couple hundred employees at the Department of Transportation to try to get this money out to all the dealers who were out anywhere from 300, in our district, 300 to $1 million the day fronted. And then the federal government said, well, now we can't get the money out to you. And some dealers that have been waiting over a month, and of course they're floor planning all this debt. And then they're saying, wait a minute, it's 18 pages of documentation they had to fill out. And people are saying, wait, you all want to do a health care plan, but you can't even get $3 billion out to pay off the dealers. So when this bill came up, the American people on health care are very, very concerned. And the only reason, I'll tell you why this bill did not pass on the Friday before the recess, before the August recess, was the American people. The American people said, slow down. There's not one person in this room, there's not one person in Ohio, there's not one person in Washington that does not believe that we got to do something about health care in this country. But they're all very concerned about how we're going to go about it and how we're going to do it. Because, everybody says, well, we ought to do what the British do or the Canadians do. And, when we get all this information back and forth, and, I've got 2 Canadian doctors I know around around Bowling Green, and they came to me and said, no, you don't want to do what they're doing in Canada. They say, why do you think we moved to the United States? And they said, we got massive problems. And just this is from the Vancouver Sun, and this is an article that appeared up there that says that because of their budgetary shortfalls on their medical side in Canada, okay, this is socialized medicine, it says here they're going to have to cut 6,000 surgeries in one hospital. I mean, you're not going to get them. And this is not your normal type of surgeries, because this is anything from vascular surgery, you name it, it goes right down the line. And they're saying, well, all we're going to save money is we're just going to cut the surgeries. So the Canadians, a lot of Canadians, of course, so they don't have to wait 2 or 3 years to get their surgeries, come to the United States to get it. On breast cancer survival rate in Great Britain, compared to the United States, it's 11% higher here in the United States for survival. And the reason for that is we treat people faster, and we also schedule more drugs. In this country, we have a lot of pharmaceuticals, but a lot of the drugs are being developed here, and it's very, very expensive. But with how they cut the costs over in Europe is they say, we're just not even going to schedule them. And then they say, we're not only going to not just schedule them in our hospital, we're going to make them illegal to even have in the country. So we say that, we're just, so even though there's a drug out there that might treat you better, they say, too bad, because you either get this or nothing. A friend of mine called me a couple weeks ago, and she has a very rare type of cancer that she's being treated for. And she's very concerned about this legislation because her medication will cost her $55,000 for the rest of her life. She's got to be on this now, never go off of it. So, there's a lot of concern out there. And the other night, when the president spoke to Congress, it was kind of interesting because normally we get a copy of their speech several hours in advance. Well, what they did was they handed out this little card. This is all we got, with little bullet points on it about the speech. And, what helped derail this bill from getting passed before the 1st of August was the Congressional Budget Office came out and said, do you all realize, and the Congressional Budget Office is a nonpartisan wing that's supposed to look at all the legislation and score it. And when they looked at the legislation that was being brought forward on the House side, they came out and said, your bill is actually going to cost more than what we've got right now. So fortunately, it slowed it down. They said, okay, now we got to start looking at it. This is when the American people really started getting involved in this. They found out a couple of things. One, nobody's read this. This is the bill. It's about 1,028 pages, and I tell you what, if you're an insomniac, it will put you to sleep, or if you're a person that's got a lot of fears about things, it'll keep you awake. So, one weekend, I sat down and read the whole bill. And so I tabbed it and really looked at it, and because there's a lot of, when I tell folks is this, a lot of times it's not the rhetoric you hear. They say, well, this is what we have in the bill, but it's how a court is going to interpret this piece of legislation. And you can forum shop and find the court that you want, and you can pretty much go there and get a page interpreted the way you want. So that's kind of where we are. It's estimated because of the cost of the bill that's in the House right now. It'll cost about 4.7 to 5 million jobs in the country. And they say, well, how do you come up with that number? For small businesses, if we took, if you have a payroll over $400,000, let's just say you're $405,000. Let's use that as a figure. You have 10 employees. Well, if you have to pay an 8% tax on those employees on that payroll, you're just going to go down the line and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10's gone because now we're using 10's salary to pay for the rest. It's going to have to be made up because someone's going to pay for it. When they say that insurance companies, and again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be doing it. We got to do a lot in this country. But there'll be a tax on insurance companies of at least 1%. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to pass that on to, if you've got insurance through, you name the company, they'll say, okay, now I've got to make that up by having you pay the tax that the federal government's paying, assessing on us. They also, when you look at